On the other hand, I can now promise you, when I got up in February and looked out over the 50,000 people out there on the mall in Washington, the only thing I could think of to say really was, I've waited my whole life to see if we actually were going to have a movement to fight climate change, and now I know we are. I know we're going to fight. All I can say is I very much look forward to doing it shoulder to shoulder with you all, and being back in this part of the world for the big party when all 5 of those coal ports go down. Thank you all. So I won't be in the slightest bit offended if anybody needs to go. But if there are a few minutes worth of questions or ideas or abuse or whatever it is, Katie, you pick.
I keep waiting to hear that some rich, smart business person investor is divesting just on an economic.
Oh, it's starting to happen. So, one of the best parts of the divestment campaign so far has been a couple of those guys have emerged. Not all rich white people turn out to be the problem. There's a guy named Jeremy Grantham, a billionaire investor in Boston, who actually came to Washington to get arrested in this last fight. And from this coast in California, a guy named Tom Starr, who founded one of the largest hedge funds in the country, a thing called Farallon Capital Management. If you look him up in the Forbes 400 list, he's worth an impressive. I like he's worth an impressive $1.4 billion. He quit his job. Told his money guys to sell all his fossil fuel investments, partly for moral reasons, he said, but partly because he thinks it's a terrible, at this point, terrible investment. And what he's been going around telling colleges is, you guys should definitely divest because you've got an edge on other people right now. Other investors are, looking at the Wall Street Journal every morning, which is not a good source of information about climate change. You guys have something called a physics department, and it can inform you exactly how big this carbon bubble is. And in fact, once they started when I wrote this piece for Rolling Stone, I was pretty sure the numbers were sound and things, but I was still happy to see in the fall when the World Bank and the International Energy Agency both put out reports corroborating those numbers. In the last 3 weeks, both HSBC, the second biggest bank in the world, and Citigroup, third or fourth biggest, have put out major research reports saying if you took this 2-degree target seriously, if the countries of the world did anything to live up to their pledge, their, in many cases, legally binding pledge to try to hold emissions to the point where it won't go above 2 degrees, if we did that, then the value of these companies' shares would be cut in half. So, the word's beginning to get around. Pension funds and places are starting to have to deal with the fact that there's a real, what they would call exposure risk now. And the more that we build this campaign, the greater that risk will get. So, it's not the key part of the reason above all we wanted to do this divestment thing was just so that people would be forced to grapple with the knowledge that these companies were rogue companies, that they were outlawed. Not against the laws of the state, they get to write those, but outlawed against the laws of physics, okay? And we wanted people to grapple with that all the time. But it's already starting to bite some for them. And the more we do it, the more it'll bite.
We appreciate your inspiration, Bill. I was there in November when we got this whole thing kicked off, and you brought up the concept of activism from some of us that have been around a little bit longer, and how, what else do we have to lose? And I started thinking about it then, and thought, thinking about the years we were fighting in Vietnam, and what happened. We were able to stop that. We were able to stop that war. It wasn't easy, but we did it. And then I thought again tonight when you spoke again about what is it we have to lose, especially those of us that have been around for a little while. And I think back a couple of years now, was it, when Fukushima had an incredible disaster? And what did some of the older people do that I understood occurred, who had to help try to shut that thing from going awry? They stepped up and said, my life is nearly ended. I'm going to step into the reactor and help close it down. Now, you're not asking us to do that.
No.
You're asking 1, 2, or 3 days to sit in the cell. I think it's worth for me to think about a little more closely than I've ever done.
I've talked to a number of people. Thank you for saying that. I've talked to a number of people in the last 6 months who come say, this is on my bucket list now. So, word's getting around.
Hey, I just want to know, what do you think about Earthships as a solution to...
About?
Earthships. Do you know this type of houses? Earthships.
Earthships, oh yeah. Well, so there's lots and lots of, and that's a particularly good and beautiful example, but there's lots and lots of things that one can do. Figure out how to build one's dwelling, how to make one's campus green, all the sort of things that we're doing. They all work, they're all good, and we all should do them. When I'm not on airplanes flying around, I'm pretty green at home, I have solar panels everywhere, insulation thick, and, pretty close to zero footprint. But also don't try to fool myself into thinking that that's actually how we're going to stop climate change. Given the time that we have, systemic and structural reform is what will get the job done. Now, if we had 100 years, it'd be a different story. And then the correct and proper way to change would be to concentrate mostly on those things. And the word would spread and our culture would slowly change. And that's how things change best, gradually, cheaper, and less traumatic, and all that. But we don't have that luxury, so we've got to do the things close to home, and they're important and worth doing, and we've got to save enough energy to do the political stuff too, because it's the stuff that has some hope of actually changing things on a scale that have to change. It's a good question. Great. We have time for one more.
Thank you. Bill, you are one family, and we're so grateful to have you here, brother. It's such a gift. For those of us who are taking the call to divestment very seriously with our respective institutions, I have